Everybody's circling around the electron wagon. Every manufacturer is now moving in the direction of throwing out that internal combustion engine and putting in an electric motor. Now, one company that is actually considered to be one of the leaders in modern technology and advancement, they certainly were when it came to hybrid automobiles, is Toyota. But Toyota has not been jumping on the bandwagon super fast on the electric side, but they have finally produced an electric car. Look at here. This is a Toyota, and you open this up, and look at there. There's our plug. But this is not a plug-in hybrid. Nope. This is an electric. It is so electric that if you try to put gas in it, you're just going to make a mess. This is, in fact, the 2023 abbreviation. Well, actually, see, this is the problem I have with this car. I love the lines. I think it's beautiful, but the name, it's called a bZ4X. Kind of wild, huh? Well, you want to see more? You should, because this is a very interesting car. Please stay with us. Toyota, I just met an EV called Toyota. Although, to be honest, it's remarkably, frighteningly similar to a Subaru that probably also has a completely indecipherable name. I don't really know what it is yet, but when I get one, I'll tell you all about it. But it is definitely very, very similar to this. Matter of fact, there's a X-Drive mode that the Toyota has, and X-Drive is like a patented Subaru term, I believe. It has to do with off-road capability stuff. But anyway, feast on this beautifulness. This is a very, very futuristic looking vehicle, like most of the electrics are these days. And it rides on a 112.2 inch wheelbase and this is the all-wheel drive limited version. So it has two electric motors, one driving the front, one driving the back. Both of them put out about 107 horsepower each for a grand total of 214 horsepower output. Now, that doesn't sound like much in electric land because, you know, they routinely go completely crazy with their numbers, but in the case of this Toyota, they keep it on a more modest level, and it seems to get along just fine. As near as I can tell so far, I haven't driven it that much. But like all electrics, it has an enormous lithium-ion battery in it that weighs a lot, and the overall curb weight is 4,464 pounds. So not a light car. It's not a small car either. It has a lot of room in it. And it also has some definite off-road capability in terms of traction assistance. It doesn't have the world's greatest ground clearance, and it's not got the suspension that's designed for hardcore off-roading, obviously. But as far as really nasty weather and that kind of thing, and maybe your forest trail road, that kind of thing, this car should do quite well. It has all these things in its favor. The battery itself is a 72.8 kilowatt unit. And exactly where it's located, well, that's where they put all of them, on the bottom of the car, to help with the overall weight management, I would say. But it also helps in handling quite a bit. That's why most of these electric cars all handle beautifully in cornering up to a point. Then there's, you know, when you have that kind of mass, it's still mass. And you go to sliding sideways, But you're talking in real extreme cornering. Overall, the overall handling of the car is excellent. Very stable. And it, of course, has a regenerative braking component to it, which is one of the ways that you extend your battery life. Now, this is one of the areas that the little bit I've seen on this car, because I don't tend to pay much attention to what other car reviewers say. It's not because I'm a jerk. Well, I am a jerk, but it's mainly because I just like to see for myself what my overall impression is, without having anything to go on beforehand. But the little bit I have seen, some people have been complaining about the range, and it's true, this doesn't have a really extensive range. With the all-wheel drive limited model, I believe your range is supposed to be right around 220 miles, in that neighborhood. I just fully charged it up to 100%, and it said 188 miles, but I think it's probably got a little bit more than that. I think that's taking into account temperature and other things. But we'll see. I'm driving it to find out how far it'll go. And charging time seems to be relatively modest. The thing is, the maximum amount of charging it can take is 100 kilowatts. And a lot of these faster chargers are 120, all the way up to 350, and I don't believe this car is equipped to deal with that. But we'll see when I get it charged. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I do with all the electrics. I'm going to go to a public charging station when I need to get it charged, and time how long it takes, and we'll go from there and compare that to some of the others like the Ioniq 5 and the GV60 electrified I just had from Genesis. Very nice car. So anyway, the lines on this thing are beautiful. Now the question is, how did they package the engine compartment? Because some people, it's just a big flat thing with maybe even a frunk in the front, which of course is a front trunk, a frunk. Or it may have what looks like to be a motor, an electric, well, let's just say an electric version of a gas motor, this big lump sitting in the middle, like what you're used to seeing actually. And which way will Toyota go? Well, I mean, this is a very futuristic looking car, so I would think it might have a frunk and be that sort of approach. But there's only one way to find out for sure. And our survey says, the question is answered. Wow, this is unusual. Here's your electric, you know what this looks like right off the bat? This is your electric motor for your front drive system. And more than anything else to me, you know what it looks like? It looks like, if you've ever seen the underhood area of the Mirai, which has a fuel cell, hydrogen fuel cell propulsion system. And it kind of looks like that to me, to be honest with you. This is wild looking. It's a big old square with your superfied electric cables going into it. And you can see right down there where the electric motor is, it powers the front wheels. And then we have two different cooling systems. We have this cooling system here, and then we have this one over here. And what does what? Well, this one here looks like it is somehow associated with the onboard heating system for your cold weather. That's what I'm assuming. I'm just guessing. And this is probably to cool the battery system and the electric motor itself. So you have two different cooling systems, quite a few hoses here. With a look at this little spindly connector here. It's fun looking at this like it's a regular gas engine because it sort of looks a little like a gas engine, but it's not one. And you got this little structure here, this little bridge that it's sitting on top of. And oh, what's this? 12-volt battery. Even full electrics need a 12-volt battery to do all kinds of different little things. Including, I still think it's probably like the Toyota Prius and other hybrids in the Toyota line in that it powers up the computer initially that powers everything else. So you got, rather than power the computers at the very beginning at least, off your main traction battery, your lithium-ion unit that's tacked onto the bottom of the chassis, you have a little 12-volt battery to handle a lot of those chores. But otherwise, it's, you know, what do you check? What kind of oil does it take? It don't. Oh, there is no oil here. Well, there is the air filter. No, there's no air filter. It's funny because if you were standing here next to me, it's funny, it really does feel like you're looking at a regular engine at first. And then you take a good gander at it, and this is our, so this is a 107 horsepower right in here that you're getting. And there's probably a very, very similar unit in the back for the rear drivetrain on this all-wheel drive version. You can also get a front-wheel drive version if you want. If you live in an area that may not necessarily benefit from all-wheel drive, you can go with the front drive, probably save yourself some money. None of these electrics are exactly cheap. This one's not too bad, but so anyhow, that's it. No frunk, no fancy packaging, just a nice electric motor sitting right here on top here with a whole lot of warnings on it telling you don't touch it, because there's high voltage going through all this stuff here to drive you on your way. So there we have the XB2 backburst bringing power plant. Yeah, that's what they call it. So tell me, how do you feel about Turanza? Have you ever been to Turanza? Well, in the land of Bridgestone, this is a Turanza tire, which is kind of, I think it is aimed towards the electric world in terms of, I imagine it has very, very low rolling resistance. What's our tire size? Let's find that tire size. There it is. It is a 235/50 R20. See, these are 20-inch wheels with a real interesting little paint work here on your, I don't know if that's, I don't know what that's for, but that's interesting. But you got some very substantial front rotors and a pretty substantial front caliper. And I mean, you need that, and if you got to haul this thing down from speed, because it weighs quite a bit for not an enormous car. But you know, that's the deal with the electrics. They weigh a lot, all of them. None of them are lightweight because batteries weigh a great deal, and you need a great deal of batteries in order to, you know, get you down the road. As we sleekly go around this filthy car, that's my fault, sorry. The weather has not cooperated in the least lately with us, but let's have a look. Isn't that exhaust great? Oh, there is no exhaust pipes. That's what I love about these electrics. There's nothing there. Nothing. But here, we shall open our hatch on our bZ4X. See, I got it right. If I can read it right in front. Oh, here we are. bZ4X, yeah. But as you can see right off the bat, we have a 60/40 fold down capacity for your rear seat. This being a limited, it has a lovely JBL sound system. And what do you think? Do you think this thing has a spare tire? I don't know. I would kind of doubt it would. I'm right. What we do have is, here's our charging cable that has been hastily tossed in here by some goofball, like, well, it was myself that was throwing it in a hasty manner. Because I had to get up to the barn, because we got this horse that knocked this fence down. Oh, never, you don't want to know all that. But this is very roomy back here. You get quite a bit of stuff back here, and especially when you fold the seats. I don't have the capacity. Maybe I'll put it down at the bottom of the screen, like somewhere in here. But it's great. I mean, it's an SUV, what can I tell you? It does have a fastback line here, roof line. So you look like you wouldn't have a whole lot of headroom, but you probably have good headroom, and we'll find out when we examine that very closely. But no spares, so there is probably, did I see a motility kit? I didn't see one. I'm almost positive it has one. I just don't know where to put it. But this also looks like you have one of these, the bottom here you can flip over, and instead of having this side, you can have hard plastic if you want that, which is always nice. We have the capability here for a parcel thing, but I don't see a parcel thing. So I don't know where all this stuff is, but I'm going to look into it for you, because you're going to need at least a motility kit, because the best of my knowledge, these Bridgestones are not run flats. Whee! Spielbergian shot done with a GoPro. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, in North America now, Toyota is located in Texas, in Plano, Texas, home of a college girlfriend of mine, but we won't get into that now. Hope she's good though. She was a wonderful girl. I love these taillights on this thing too, by the way. I think the styling of this car is excellent. I really, most of the electrics, they spent a lot of time on it. They got to win over a public in every way possible, because it's a big change to go from a gasoline powered engine to an electric. I mean, there's it's a change in your lifestyle, a lot of stuff to get used to, but more than anything else, they're trying to tell you this is the future. And it is. I believe electric propulsion is the future. I'm just not real sure how we're going to be providing the energy for the propulsion. That's why I'm real interested in all this fuel cell technology, don't you know? All right, so what's next? Let's examine further. Perhaps we should all go inside. Well, I don't know if you can hear it, but this thing is spinning up. This here Toyota, also known as the bZ4X, and I hope I don't have to say that too many times because I never get it right. This fully electric Toyota sounds kind of like a private jet spooling up, starting them engines, getting ready to take you on your way. It's one of the many qualities it has that says, well, what is it saying? It's kind of saying, I am the future, being a full electric car. And one of the great things about this particular electric, and it's taken a beating from a lot of the competition in terms of the, mainly things like the battery capacity, i.e. how many miles you can get per full charge, and that kind of thing. And it doesn't have as much horsepower as a lot of the rest of them, but after spending some time with this car, and as you'll see as we drive about, I really like this thing. I love everything about how it handles, how it drives, how it feels. They did a real nice job with this. I say we, or they, I say, I'm talking Toyota and Subaru, because I think there was joint cooperation with this particular project. And neither company had a fully electric car like this, a nice SUV, crossover SUV. They didn't have it in the full electric department. Now they both do. And it's fascinating in a lot of ways. Now let me see if I can get a little closer here for you. One of the weird things about this is the orientation of the steering wheel to this instrument cluster. And at first I thought it was just totally messed up, because when I was adjusting this, like so, up and down and doing all this, I couldn't really get it right until I actually sat properly in the car. And then I discovered that, oh, okay, if I put it right like this, it's actually where I like to personally have it. And there is the beautiful instrument cluster revealed for all to see. So what we have is a very simplistic, elegant type of system. You got your speedometer, which is digital in the middle. On the right side is like a power gauge in terms of how much battery charge you have left. So let's think of it as a fuel gauge if you want. If that gives you comfort, you can do that. And right next to that, very conveniently, is the miles to you got to recharge, pretty much. Now, what kind of reserve does that leave? I don't know exactly. I'm assuming that they're. The interesting thing about this car is I've charged it a couple of times up to 100%, and neither time was it up to the capacity claimed by Toyota. In other words, usually this particular all-wheel drive version of the B is supposed to have a range of around 220 or so, and I only got about like 190, 188, and I said, whoa. Why is that? Well, I think it's because it's taking a lot into account. And that's basically, and also the fact that they want to make sure that there's a reserve so you can, in fact, get to wherever you need to get in terms of a charging station without running her out of charge and sitting on the side of the road. They don't want that. None of the manufacturers want that. So the beauty of this display is that it's so elegantly simple that you will always know how many miles you have left and what you need to do about it. The middle right there, just below the speedometer, that's the eco mode, because I have in fact put it on the eco mode. Now I take it off, now I put it on. Now, are there other modes? Well, there is one real interesting mode called the X mode, and the X mode is an all-wheel drive only situation, and it's also named after the X-Men, especially Wolverine and Magneto together. So no, I'm making all that up. X mode is actually best known with Subaru. That's what they use for their off-road mode driving situation, so you can fine-tune it to your off-road terrain requirements. And in this case, there we go, we're in X mode now, and this is snow and dirt, and then deep snow and mud, and which also turns off the traction control and the front collision warning. And that's it. Those are the modes you have. You have the eco mode and two different X modes, and that's it. I mean, there's a lot of elemental simplicity to this car that I kind of like, to tell you the truth. Now, naturally, being a modern device, there are different things you can look at in terms of your display situation. Let me do some for you. There's our all-wheel drive. Now, that's telling you an interesting thing about the all-wheel drive on this car and so many Toyotas, especially of the hybrid variety, is you're using your rear wheels. It's primarily a front drive vehicle, but you use your rear wheels more than you might think. You don't just use it for when there's slipping and sliding going on to help power you through your terrain situation or your snow, but also just in general, it generally stabilizes the chassis, especially when you're taking off from a standing start. And it works really well. It's a very seamless system, I must say. And this is where we have our basically settings. And you can also get to the settings on the main screen, but with Toyota, they also have one right here. So, you know, like you have your lane departure, you have your blind spot monitor, you have your pedestrian something crashing into things, you have your parking assist, which summons an 18-year-old kid to come drive your car and knock the crap out of it on other cars. Well, not really. And then we have the rear cross traffic alert and all this other stuff that I don't even know what it is. But the proximity, if you want to use the rear liftgate is, of course, powered on this SUV. And, of course, you can swipe your foot underneath it and it'll open. And then you have this particular sensor array right here. It tells you when you're about to back up into something. This is a real nice one, safe exit assist. This one tells you if you're opening your door and the car, through the rear sensors, detects cars coming toward you about to kill you. So it'll tell you, it will give you an auditory warning. I mean, it can't grab you and pull you back in the car and shut the door yet, but that's basically what it is. It's to warn you about that. And this is the RSA, which road sign assist. That's what it is. See, I actually learned what that is. Oh, I'm so proud. But that helps to give you, in this display right here, and also I believe on your navigation display, what the speed limit is for where you are, because it's actually helping you with the various, you know, what do they call them? Street signs. And this is just vehicle settings right here. Oops. And the meter settings, you can okay to detail the settings. Shall we? I'll hold the okay, and there we go. Language and units. And what do we do with this little eco? Power consumption. Yeah, okay. We like that. Do we have that? Okay. Trip average or total average? Total average is what we want. Okay. So that's, and then we go back and what else do we have here? You got all over on your left here, you got all these different, that's your eco settings right there. Then you have your compass, and then you have what you're listening to musically. Then you have the all-wheel drive system we were just looking at. And then we have there's our tires. Oops, wait a minute. God, I'm real good at this navigation thing, ain't I? Anyway, I think that's basically all that is. I think that's just, it's all it's going to do is tell you what the tire pressure is, which is always important on all vehicles, gas or electric. So, that's enough of that, but you get the idea. It's you have a lot of stuff right at your fingertips, right here on the. You know, I have this theory. I don't know if I talk about this later or not, but I have this theory. If you first saw the prototypes of this car when Toyota announced it, the steering wheel basically ended about here, and this part was not here. It's more of a yoke, like on a 757, and I think that's why I initially had problems with getting the steering wheel oriented correctly in order so I could easily see the instruments. I think this was initially, and Tesla's done this with the, I believe it's called the Plaid version of one of their cars, and it's an incredible failure. It's a totally stupid way to do it on a car. I think Toyota figured that out, but it's all fine because, like I said, this instrument system here is so cool because you see you got your little bridge that it's sitting on. I don't know. I'm captivated by it because I really like it, and I like the clarity of the instrumentation too. So what else do we have? Well, by the way, before we go to the screen there, we have this little area here. It's kind of like an overpass, an underpass over your overpass, where you can put some things down there. I could put my clipboard with my Roomy. I put that in there, and here's some hand cleaner. Look there, I put that there. You also have a USB-C port, conveniently, and a 12-volt power port right there. What's here? Nothing. Nothing is here. So that's interesting. And then we come across to our rather spacious center touchscreen display. Now, I could go on for way too long about how I don't like the new interface system on Toyotas. And that goes everything from the Tundra, just had the RAV4 hybrid, and this thing. I don't like it. The screen is tolerable for me right now, just the display itself, because I have it set on a dark mode. Because otherwise it just, I have problems. I got problems with it. And I believe, let's see, general accessibility. It takes me forever to navigate it. And that may be me. You know, I'm not busting on the car as much as I'm just saying it doesn't work for me. I have problems with display. Okay, there we go. You see it's on automatic. Well, I turned that off. Now if I put it back on, look what happens. Look, it's this white, which I just can't stand. So then I do that, and then I go to dark. And I find that much more, as far as legibility, it's a hell of a lot better. The screen itself, the quality is good. It's nice, and once again, I think Toyota's pretty much nailed the proper height. In terms of you can see over the screen very, very easily, and yet it's high enough so you don't have to take your eyes too far off the main screen. And it is, of course, in landscape, as it should be. Tesla, Volvo. But down here, as we migrate slightly, just ever so slightly south, we have our mess, as I like to call it. This is where our climate control is. There's no knobs here for the radio. There's no knobs for the climate control. Some of this is very easy to manage. Like right here is your seat heater. Now it's on auto, and then you can select it manually if you want to. And I don't know why that's on auto. I want that off. There we go. But I just don't find it to be as easy to deal with. It's not horrific. But like it's easy to adjust the temperature settings right here. And if we sync, we'll sync them together and put it on 68 where it should be. There we go. It's okay. I mean, and we do have one of my favorite things right here, which is the lower part of the windscreen up front is heated so that you can help break ice off of there if you need to. So you got all this here, and it just is not as intuitive to me as having knobs. And I've had the car for a week now, and I've gotten used to it, but I still don't like that particular thing. It's just, it doesn't work too well for me. But again, personal preference. So here we go down here, and here's our unique and cool shifter. Now how's that work? Well, you got this knob right here, and you push down on it like so. There's reverse, and see, and there's our reverse screens, and there's our tone telling us you're in reverse, you're in reverse, you're in reverse. Yeah. And so then we push down, go to neutral, and there's drive, and it's that simple. It's super, super easy to do. And for park, that's a switch right there, a little button you press right there, and you're parked. Now, what's this? What's this with the boot on it? Well, this is a, unlike a lot of the other full electrics, Toyota doesn't have a regenerative brake system that you can adjust via steering wheel paddles. So it's, they give you one or two settings. One is like a full automatic setting, which it's on now, but you can press this, and that little fella right there, oops, I'm sorry, oh dear, I've disrupted. That little fella right there is telling you that it's, the regenerative capacity is much, much higher, and boy, can you feel it. You hit that switch and the thing just starts to slow down dramatically. So you can use it, but it's not near as convenient or useful, in my opinion, as having like the paddle shifter type regenerative braking adjustments that you can make. And you have 3 or 4 different settings, and you get used to it real quick, and you can literally stop the car using that instead of the mechanical brakes. But that's the way that is, and why that's that way, I don't know. Oh, wait a minute, you know, something I didn't do right here. Here's your X mode, as I mentioned before. I'm going to turn her on. Now, what does this do? Grip unavailable. See owner's manual. Well, grip is, I don't know. Check operational system control. Well, anyway, grip is a traction control system that further enhances the X mode if you're in really nasty off-road type situations. Now, would you take this car in an off-road situation? Well, it actually has very good ground clearance, and of course, naturally, the bottom of it is just a big flat thing with a battery underneath it. It's that's where this enormous battery. It's what is that battery? Let's look, shall we? I have it in my notes. It is 72.8 kilowatt. Battery capacity, which is pretty substantial. So you have that. I think you could actually do a reasonable amount of trail work, like a fire trail in the forest kind of thing, without a big problem with this car. You got to remember a couple of things, though. You have no spare. You have a motility kit, but no spare. And speaking of no and not having things, there's no glove box. What? What do you say? There is no glove box here. So I will show you where you keep your owner's manual, but there is no glove box there. I'm not sure why that is, except Toyota would not do that unless there's something underneath there they needed to put underneath there that has something to do with the operation of the car. And I'm guessing probably the heating and air conditioning system, because it's actually very elaborate on this car, so that it works with maximum efficiency in terms of not using as much of the main traction battery, and still provide good heating. It's probably mostly heating, actually, because the air conditioning compressor is just an electric compressor like they are on hybrids and electrics in general, and that's not that big a deal. But heating is where you get in the area that's much more complex. And I know there's some radiant heating involved with this particular model that will help warm the car up quickly, instead of with some electrics. That's a shortcoming in really cold climates. And the fact that it does deplete the battery. Cold climates do pretty quickly, but also just the fact that you have a situation where you can't blast the interior with heat without taking a real toll on the battery life. So this is a way of dealing with that, and it's probably incredibly complex.
but they do things that way. All right, you slide this back, and what do you got? Yeah, you got a very nice array of cup holders. It slides back forward like that. Now this doesn't stay as locked as I personally would like. It's okay, but it can be worrisome. Worry. Now then, how do you open this? How do you open this? Do you press over here? Do you press over here? Do you press down here? Do you push down here? Do you press here? Do you press here? I've been opening this thing for quite some time, and I don't know how to open it. And I know it's important because the owner's manual's in there. How in the hell? Oh, wait a minute. How about that? That's just funny. I'm just having fun with you. Okay, look here. We remove the mask, and where is our owner's manual? Where? Well, if we take this out, there she is. So you have no glove box, but you still have a place to put your owner's manual. And then it vanishes like a Houdini, and then you put your mask back in, and there you go. But you got to slide that all the way back to get to this. You see, that's the only way to do that. But it's a design choice. What are you going to do? Now, this is neat. Look at this. You have kind of the surface of this has got glass and then a little window, and oh, it's so cool. But there's your QI charger, and here we have a standard USB port. And I'm still having the same trouble I always have with Toyotas with my phone with the case on it and the QI charger. They just don't seem very simpatico. So I think they need to do something about that, but I don't know what they actually can. It may have something to do with the fact that the penetration, QIs are interesting because they don't want people putting keys in. There's all kinds of induction going on here. And they're not real thrilled about the induction situation being too high. So I'll tell you something real interesting about these cars, all of them now, all vehicles, not just electrics, but especially electrics, is there is so much in the way of magnetic fields going around here, because you got right up yonder, you got this massive electric motor with all these copper windings. And that could really play havoc with all kinds of electronics. Your mechanical watch, if it's not one of these watches that is highly resistant to magnetic fields, all kinds of things could potentially happen, but they don't. There's never a problem. I've never had a problem with any of this stuff, with any of the modern cars, and the reason is they do an amazingly good job at shielding all this RF. I don't know how they go about doing it exactly, but I've never been in a car that's had an issue with it. It's very, very impressive in that regard. And I mention that just because you're just potentially bathed in a system of electric flux while you're driving an electric car. But it's fine. Everything is shielded away from you, and if it wasn't, then it would really play havoc with a lot of these electronics and other things like that. So, okay, up here. Well, wait a minute. Should we go here? Well, should we go here? This I'm not thrilled about here. The steering naturally has the requisite number of buttons and things like this, but with the cruise control, which is over here, I find it extremely difficult to navigate around here with just my finger, because it's all flat and it's all very similar to the same. And I really feel like they need to consider going back to the original way that Toyota has done cruise control for the longest time, put it on a stalk so it's separate, because that way it is it's always what it is. It's always easy to find. It's like no other control on the car. You can't mistake anything on that cruise control for anything else, where this, I've done it already. It's so hard this is one type of cruise, and this is the mode of the cruise control, and here's your distance adjustment, and your plus and minus as far as your speed that you're driving, you're cruising at, I should say. Then you have your lane departure, and it's a catastrophe. I really think it needs to be thought out better. And this side, same thing. I mean, it's a little easier because the volume adjustment is very easy, because it is a different type of thing. But this, and the fact that you have to use the touch screen over here, whenever you do anything enable audio. I mean, oh, if I enable audio, I can't mute it? Is that what you're telling me?
World, everything is upside down.
Yeah, everything is upside down. He's right. See, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, you know, I just think a lot of this needs to be rethought. And I'm talking about a car I really like, by the way, but I feel like all these little things are cumulatively are annoying because I find them counterintuitive and not easy to do without learning how to do it and taking your eyes off the wheel. So, let's go to something really positive about this car, shall we? If you go to the back seat, first of all, there's a nice big door here. Doesn't open as much as it should. It opens about 81 degrees instead of 90, which is what I like. But man, this car has a very, very big, comfortable rear seat. And I mean serious leg room. Look at this. Look at this, if you will. Here I am in a conversational mode. And I've got the seat back, you know, a bit. And it's got just tons of headroom up there. I mean, it's really, really spacious. You have no drive shaft tunnel. It's nice and flat. You have outboard seat heaters here and here. You have your USB-C ports for your devices. And I tell you what, it's very, very spacious. Now, does it have kick-ass map lights? No. It just has a central one. I don't understand that. It should have individual map lights. It doesn't, but what the heck? You know, I'm never going to be driving back here. I don't need to read nothing. Here's our armrest, which has our cup holders, and it's excellent. It's a good height, good length. They got that. They nailed that. Now, here's another question. How about how far does the window go down? 100%. 100%, 10 points to Gryffindor. I love that. It's funny because it's almost, I hate to use the limousine word, but it really is got a lot of room in this back seat. And I think that's outstanding. And it is an SUV. I mean, they've definitely biased, they've cut short some of the cargo area in the back in order to make the rear seat roomy. But you can modify, you can adapt because you have the ability to fold these seats naturally. Are we 60-40? Let's look here. Ooh, let's do this. Let's do this right here. Yep. 60-40. And there we are. So you got quite a bit of room here when you do this. And there is enough car. If you have passengers in the back seat, you still have room for a couple of real good sized suitcases, maybe 3 or 4. And you do have a cool little light back there, just no individual map lights here. So do that, Toyota. Put those individual map lights in and give me some knobs. All told, though, this is a real nice interior. Interesting things about this is a first-year model, right? This is the first time this has finally come out. And it's got 4,000 miles on it, and so far, no squeaks, rattles, or anything else like that, which you might get with a first-year car. It's really quiet. It has a really solid feel. Has a first-class ride. I love the ride, and I love the acceleration and everything of a full electric powertrain is a beautiful thing. So I like this car quite a bit. I wish they addressed some of these foibles, and they're minor, but they're foibling me. And I would like to see a glove box, but you know, they'll do what they can. They'll do what they will. I want to know what's behind there and why they don't have one, because there's got to be a reason. And I also hope across the board Toyota will rethink their interactive system on their touchscreens, because I don't like it. I don't know how else to put it. I love it, the rest of the car so much, and I think this is such a terrific car, but that bothers me because I have a hard time wrestling with it every time. And I'm confident they'll get it right. They'll find out what works and what doesn't, and they'll get a lot of. One of the best things you can do, no matter what you're driving, if you buy a new car, or even if you're looking at a new car and test driving it in the whole 9 yards, but there's things about it you don't like, tell the manufacturer, let them know, tell them that you have a problem with this, because they need the feedback. They're working in their own area, in their bubble, where they're trying to do everything as smart as they possibly can, and you never know what people are going to like, and you never know what's going to break on cars until they get it out in the real world with the public, because the public does terrible things to cars. Terrible things. All right? Moving on. One of the things I like about this car right off the bat is there's so many vehicles that call themselves SUVs, and that means what? Well, it can basically be a sedan with a higher roof line, and that's about it. And this, the bZ4X Toyota electric, I'm never going to get used to this name, ever. Well, it's not a hardcore SUV or anything, but it does have a decent amount of ground clearance, and the most impressive thing about this vehicle to me is the suspension. The suspension is really good. It's very comfortable, and yet it can deal with many little bits and foibles and things nicely. It's a great combination of ride compliance and handling, which is what we're always looking for. And there's a number of weird things about this that I've discussed. I have the car set up now so that the arrangement of the instrument cluster and my eyes are perfect, and it looks great, and it's a very unusual situation. It's like on this flying buttress type structure that they've put it on. That's one of the things you can do with flat screens, is you can put them anywhere. But this is really nice. Now, when I first got in the car, I had all kinds of problems adjusting the steering so I could see properly. And if I don't know if you guys ever saw the initial pictures of what is essentially the prototype of this car, but they had the same yoke system that I think one of the Teslas had briefly, or still does. I think it's the Plaid. Well, who calls a car Plaid? I mean, if there wasn't already enough issues with Tesla for a variety of different reasons, but it had a yoke on it. This whole part of the top steering wasn't there, so you were like flying an airplane. And I almost feel like this car was initially, and this car had the same thing initially in the prototype stage. At least I remember seeing it somewhere. And that would explain why this area here is low, that for some people, well, I guess you'd have to be really short. And when I initially sat in the car, I had a hard time adjusting this, because this like partially obscures it if you have it all the way up like this, and if you lower it down to here, you're fine. But I almost feel like when the whole car interior was designed, it was designed with that type of steering yoke rather than steering wheel in place. So I don't know, but now that I've gotten it adjusted, I like it. I like it a lot. Another thing I like, in addition to the suspension, another thing I really like about this car is I find the seats to be fantastic. There's a lot of support, and they just kind of cradle you nicely, and they're just great seats. They put a lot of work in the seats in this car, and that's a big thing. You'll never know what car until you sit in it. It is amazing to me the difference from vehicle to vehicle, how good the seats are. And a lot of that probably has to do with your own personal architecture. And when you get on high-end like luxury vehicles, you get more and more types of adjustments that you can mess around with to get it just right. But I've also always found those
to not necessarily be the best seats in the world. Even though you can adjust everything on them, you can never get them just right for your particular anatomy. But some cars like I want to say the 1980s Ford Escort, because my wife had one, and the seat on that car was excellent. It just really felt, everything else about the car was kind of marginal, although we were very fond of that car. But the seat was fantastic. You could just drive and drive and drive for hours and hours at a time, and you wouldn't have near as much fatigue and back problems or anything else that you'd have with a lot of other cars. But otherwise, the thing about this particular car, for some reason, the few bits and pieces I've seen, people jump all over the fact that, well, it only has like 215 horsepower. That, of course, is the all-wheel drive version, which we're in. But an electric car, 215 horsepower is fine. I mean, believe me, you can. It's just quick as. It's an electric car, man. It's got instant torque. It takes off. It's beautiful. It's smooth. It's great. I don't have a problem with that. Now, the range, yeah, that is a deal. That's the thing. It needs more range, and I'm sure in time they'll put, I guess, a bigger battery. But for whatever reason, Toyota is happy with putting this car on the market with the battery capacity and the range that it has. And that's their decision, you know, and that's what they've decided, and this is what they're putting on the market. How much of this involves the fact that this is basically a joint effort with Subaru, I don't know. But it does have, one of the joint effort things this thing does have is the fact that it has the X mode, off-road mode, which is, it's a series of algorithms that are designed for certain circumstances to assist you in various, I don't know, off-road situations. In a minute, I'm going to get off this road and slow down a little bit, and I'll demonstrate some of these modes for you as we are actually rolling. Because it does, that is a thing that's real popular. That's a big part of all the Subarus all-wheel drive system on especially the off-road, more off-road focused versions like the wilderness editions of their various cars and that sort of thing. Although I did have a Legacy that did not have X mode on it at all, which kind of surprised me a little bit. But you have that, and there's just bits and pieces, much like, to me, I this is a weird comparison, but if you're familiar with the Toyota 86, which is also a joint effort with Subaru, that fantastic little sports car, the one thing that screams I'm a Subaru in it is the engine, which is a 4-cylinder boxer engine. And to me, this car, the thing that screams that I am also a Subaru is the X drive system, because that's their baby, that's their thing. Very similar between Toyota and Subaru. I think Toyota, even though they don't have a huge stake in it, but that's 20% or more is a lot. Subaru is still their own company and their own thing, and their own designers and their own engineers, but they do have these joint efforts, and where they both, and the idea behind that, of course, is both companies benefit from that. And in this case, they were able to pool some resources. And in my opinion, Subaru's never been good at the hybrid thing the way Toyota has. And Toyota's the best, I believe, in terms of hybrids. Now they not only, their execution's been the best, in my opinion. They also have the largest line of hybrids, and they have the most experience. But this is actually their first completely electric car, and that's why is it taking so long? Where are they going? Are they not high on the battery powered electric car? Well, you'd have to ask them, and you won't get a real decisive answer on that, other than to say that I believe, based on what I've seen, their electric car plans involve things like fuel cells.
But that's going to be a problem because you're going to be going up against big petroleum, even more so than just battery-powered electric cars are. Because you're going to need places and you're going to need stations in order to get hydrogen, even though it's the most abundant element in the universe. But a lot of gas stations would have to also sell hydrogen or become hydrogen stations. And unless the oil companies think they're going to make even more money than they're making now by selling gasoline, they're going to do everything they can to stop that. So, but I kind of feel like it's just a gut feeling, and it's probably wrong, but I feel like that is in Toyota's mind. And when I mean Toyota, I also mean Lexus, because there is I believe there is a Lexus version of this car, battery powered, fully battery powered. Their plans look at things in such a way that they are all for electric propulsion, but they want to go a different way than just battery powered. And so to that end, they believe right now, for the foreseeable future, like I'm saying, like next 10, 15 years maybe, they think the best possible option for people in general, in the real world, is a hybrid, because that way you don't have to ever worry about finding a place to charge and sit there and charge your car. You can get gas pretty much anywhere when you need it, and it takes you 2 to 3 minutes max to fill up your tank. So all right, looky here. Now then, I'm playing with my X mode here. Okay, here we have non-X mode. Now let's go to X mode, shall we? X mode, snow and dirt. Deep snow and mud. See, it even turns off your traction control and your anti-collision thing. So those are settings. No X mode, snow, dirt, deep snow, mud. Yeah, that's it. So that is pure Subaru right there. That's your Subaru working for you. I'm gonna put that back on. I like that graphic. See, snow, dirt. Well, we are on dirt. There's dirt here. There's rocks, dirt, and I gotta be gentle with my tires. And here comes Blue Dog. Blue Dog alert. Here he comes. Where's my doggy? Where's my cameras? I want to see my dog. There he is. He's right there. He's on the side here. Yep, he's right up front now. Hello, dog. Well, we have the rear suspension on our bZ4X. And it looks very Prius-y to me. Excuse me, actually, that's not true. I didn't mean Prius-y, I meant RAV4-ish. It's a multi-link setup. You got your front link up here. Allow me, what did I do with it? Hang on. Allow me to use this amazing device. There.
The laser, yes. I'm better with animals than plugs and transistors.
Nice. There's our front link right there. See, I'm using some light amplification technology.
You are looking at an industrial laser which emits an extraordinary light not to be found in nature. It can project a spot on the moon, or at closer range, cut through solid metal. I will show you.
And here we have our lower control arm, and here also are these little protector thingy item, aerodynamic, whatever they are. I think they have multiple functions, to be honest with you. But one of the things I've been going on about how much I like, one of the things I like the most about this car is the ride quality, and it's really good. It's not air suspension or anything like that. It's just there's your coil spring right there, and a lot of aluminum components here, as you can see here, this hub, and here is our rear axle half shaft, and up in here's an upper link right up in here. So you got all these components involved there, most of which are light in weight, and it's just, I think more than anything else, it's the suspension tuning that makes it such a comfortable ride and an impressive ride. Now if we look here, see, this being electric, there's just flatness. You have everything is beautifully tucked away. This area right up in here is your battery. There's a big old battery underneath there, right in this area here. And if you come further back, there's our jacking point right there. If you need to jack the vehicle up, you can put your jack right there, which is good. Very easy to get to. And again, like with the RAV4 hybrid and some other Toyota hybrids, the rear drivetrain is completely separated from the front drivetrain, but that makes perfect sense here because it's all electric. So you basically have a electric motor up yonder, and then right underneath here, probably right about here-ish, since the drive shafts are up in there, is where your rear electric motor is, your rear motivational traction motor. And all of this is powered by that big lithium-ion battery pack. But one of the most impressive aspects of all electrics is this incredibly aerodynamic and also very, let's just say it is not prone to catch up on garbage on your trail drive, like tree branches and your odd boulder and stuff like that. I would not take this under serious off-roading conditions, but at the same time, it's nice to know everything is so well tucked away. And who knows exactly what's underneath that this panel here, right here, because you really do need to protect those lithium-ion batteries. The bad side of the modern electric automobile is there are some downsides to lithium-ion batteries, and you don't want to knock a hole in them because that could cause a fire ultimately, and lithium-ion battery fires are not easy to put out. There's a lot of things about them, but they're fairly rare. It's hard to know. People always ask about, what about charging? Do cars catch on fire while they're being charged? Well, that has happened. It's not a huge problem as far as I can tell. And we're also going back many years because so much has changed in the latest battery technologies and everything else. They've done all kinds of things to prevent that kind of thing from ever happening. Is it impossible to happen? No, of course not. But there's a very, very good safety cushion with these things, and the manufacturers stay all over it and are constantly monitoring if there is any problems, and they fix them immediately. But this stuff here is just basically a plastic that's protecting your rear transaxle and keeping everything completely aerodynamic. So, oh wait a minute, over here I got to use this there. There's that link there for your front, that's your front link, right in there. I'm having too much fun with the laser pointer. That'll happen. There's something really satisfying and beautiful about using a laser. Here's our lower arm here. So, there we go. That's the underside of your B, as I like to call it. Well, naturally, as we all know, every electron has its price. And in this case, you're starting out with our bZ4X all-wheel drive limited. You're starting at $48,780. And if you add all your options and everything else, it's $52,468, which is actually very competitive price for this equipment level and this kind of electric. It's pretty much what you get from everybody that's in the trade at the moment. So why is this car getting so beat up by some of the other people in the press? Well, it just doesn't have the range and the raw horsepower as some of the others. But I'll tell you something, if you have a good lifestyle for an electric car,
This is a nice choice. I mean, anytime you have a car that has such comfortable seats and such a good ride and is a Toyota, which means a lot, off you go. Take care, folks. We'll see you next time.
Gesandt geworden, ist viel